Welcome. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of physical activity assessment. Physical activity is more than just exercise. It's a complex human behavior that includes everything from walking to vigorous sports, and even the context in which these activities occur. Understanding how we measure physical activity is crucial for both health research and public health initiatives. In this video, we'll explore the key concepts, definitions, and methods used to assess physical activity and sedentary behavior. Let's start by understanding why accurate measurement matters and how it impacts our knowledge of health and disease. Physical activity and nutrition are the two most significant modifiable risk factors for non-communicable diseases. While they've traditionally been studied separately, researchers now recognize their combined impact on health. Physical inactivity is a leading risk factor for diseases worldwide, contributing to millions of preventable deaths each year. However, to truly understand the relationship between activity, sedentary behavior, and health, we need accurate ways to measure how much and what kind of activity people do. Without precise measurement, we risk underestimating or missing the true effects of physical activity on health outcomes. Measuring physical activity isn't as simple as counting steps or minutes. Physical activity varies greatly between individuals and is influenced by many factors, including type, intensity, frequency, duration, and context. This complexity makes it inherently difficult to capture all aspects of activity accurately. Additionally, sedentary behavior, like sitting or screen time, adds another layer of complexity. Researchers must use sensitive, valid, and reliable methods to assess not just how much activity occurs, but also its patterns and variations over time. Let's look at the key terms and definitions that form the foundation of physical activity assessment. Physical activity is any bodily movement produced by skeletal muscles that requires energy expenditure. This includes everything from fidgeting to running marathons. The concept covers various modes, like walking, cycling, or carrying loads, and domains, such as work, leisure, transportation, and household activities. Physical activity is multidimensional, varying in frequency, duration, and intensity. Understanding these dimensions helps researchers and health professionals categorize and assess activity more accurately, ensuring that recommendations and interventions are based on solid evidence. Total energy expenditure, or T, is a key concept in physical activity assessment. T includes basal metabolic rate (BMR), the thermic effect of food, and activity energy expenditure (AEE). BMR is the energy used at complete rest, while the thermic effect is the energy used to digest food. AEE varies the most between individuals and can make up a significant portion of T in active people. To compare activity intensity, researchers use the metabolic equivalent of task, or MET. 1 MET is the energy cost of resting, and higher METs indicate more intense activity. However, MET values can vary by age, fitness, and body composition. It's important to distinguish between exercise and physical activity. Exercise is a planned, structured, and repetitive form of physical activity with the goal of improving or maintaining physical fitness. Physical activity, on the other hand, includes all movement, whether it's intentional exercise or daily activities like walking to work or doing chores. Physical fitness itself refers to a set of attributes, such as cardiorespiratory fitness, which is the body's ability to supply and use oxygen during sustained activity. These distinctions help clarify research and public health recommendations. Sedentary behavior refers to activities that result in very low energy expenditure, typically no more than 1.5 METs, and are done while sitting or reclining. Common sedentary behaviors include watching TV, using a computer, driving, or reading. It's important to note that being sedentary is not the same as being physically inactive. Someone can meet activity guidelines but still spend large amounts of time being sedentary. Researchers often distinguish between sedentary and physically inactive when assessing health risks. Validity is a critical concept in research. It refers to how well a method actually measures what it claims to measure. There are different types of validity: logical or face validity, criterion validity, concurrent validity, predictive validity, and absolute validity. For example, criterion validity compares a method to a recognized gold standard. Concurrent validity checks if a new method matches the gold standard at the same time, while predictive validity looks at how well a method predicts future outcomes. Ensuring validity is essential for trustworthy results in physical activity research. Reliability is about consistency. A reliable method gives the same results when repeated under similar conditions. There are several types of reliability, including retest reliability, which checks if repeated tests yield similar results, and inter-investigator reliability, which looks at agreement between different observers. Reliability is an integral part of validity. A method cannot be valid if it isn't reliable. Researchers use statistical tools like interclass correlation coefficients and bland Altman plots to assess reliability and identify sources of measurement error. Measurement error can be visualized using graphical tools like bland Altman plots. These plots help researchers see systematic errors, which are biases introduced by measurement methods or human factors, as well as random errors, which are unpredictable variations. Heteroscedasticity, another concept, occurs when the variance of errors differs across observations. Understanding and visualizing these errors is vital for improving the accuracy and reliability of physical activity assessments. Accurate, valid, and reliable assessments of physical activity are essential for documenting activity levels in populations, understanding links between activity and health, and evaluating interventions. The choice of assessment method depends on the study's goals, the population, and the resources available. Researchers must consider participant burden, cost, and the type of information needed, such as activity context or intensity, when selecting a method. Let's explore the main methods used to assess physical activity and sedentary behavior. Criterion methods are considered the gold standard for assessing physical activity and sedentary behavior. These include direct behavioral observation, calorimetry, and the doubly labeled water (DLW) method. Each has its strengths and limitations. For example, direct observation provides rich contextual data but is time-consuming and intrusive. Calorimetry offers precise energy expenditure measurements but requires confinement to a chamber. The DLW method is highly accurate for measuring total energy expenditure in free-living settings, but it's expensive and doesn't provide detailed activity patterns. Direct behavioral observation involves an observer recording an individual's activity in real time. This method can capture both quantitative and qualitative information, including the context and social factors influencing activity. While it's often used as a criterion in validation studies, it's limited by its intrusiveness, time demands, and the risk of altering participants' behavior simply by observing them, a phenomenon known as the Hawthorne effect. Direct observation is usually confined to specific locations and times, making it less practical for large-scale studies. Calorimetry measures energy expenditure by tracking heat production or gas exchange. Direct calorimetry uses heat transfer, while indirect calorimetry measures oxygen consumption and carbon dioxide production. Although both methods are highly accurate, they require specialized equipment and controlled environments, making them less suitable for measuring habitual activity in daily life. Indirect calorimetry is more feasible, often using face masks or hoods to collect expired air, and is frequently used to validate other assessment tools. The doubly labeled water (DLW) method is considered the gold standard for measuring total energy expenditure in free-living conditions. Participants drink water labeled with stable isotopes, and researchers measure the rate at which these isotopes leave the body. This method is non-invasive, accurate, and suitable for all ages, but it's expensive and doesn't provide information on daily activity patterns. DLW is mainly used in research settings, where precise measurement of energy expenditure is required. Heart rate (HR) monitoring is a widely used objective method for assessing physical activity. HR increases in proportion to activity intensity, making it a useful marker for estimating energy expenditure and time spent at different activity levels. However, HR is influenced by factors like age, fitness, and emotional state, so individual calibration is necessary. While HR monitoring is socially acceptable and can be used over long periods, it's less accurate at lower intensities and requires careful calibration for each participant. Pedometers are simple devices that count steps or estimate distance traveled. They use mechanisms like spring lever arms or accelerometers to detect movement. Pedometers are low cost and reliable for counting steps, but they're less accurate for measuring distance or energy expenditure, especially at slow speeds. They can't measure activity intensity or duration, but are useful motivational tools in interventions aiming to increase physical activity. Pedometers are best suited for studies focused on step counts rather than detailed activity analysis. Accelerometers measure the amplitude and frequency of body movements in one or more directions. They're commonly worn on the hip, wrist, or ankle and provide objective data on movement. Accelerometers can estimate overall activity levels, intensity, and energy expenditure. However, their accuracy depends on placement and calibration, and they may underestimate activities involving little movement at the sensor site, like cycling or upper body exercise. Advances in technology now allow for high-frequency data collection and sophisticated analysis using machine learning. Accelerometers provide several types of output, including absolute measures like acceleration in g-force or ms2, activity counts, and estimates of energy expenditure. They also categorize activity by intensity, sedentary, light, moderate, or vigorous, based on METs. The data can be summarized as total counts per day, average counts per minute, or time spent at different intensities. However, differences in calibration and intensity thresholds between brands can make it challenging to compare results across studies. While accelerometers are valuable tools, they have limitations. They may underestimate the energy cost of activities involving arm movement, carrying loads, or static exercises. Placement on the body affects the data, and calibration differences between brands can lead to inconsistent results. Newer devices collect raw acceleration data, allowing for more flexible analysis and the use of machine learning to identify activity types. However, these approaches require large datasets and complex algorithms, which can be a barrier for some studies. Combining accelerometer data with physiological measures like heart rate can improve the accuracy of energy expenditure estimates. At low intensities, accelerometers are more accurate, while heart rate is better at higher intensities. By integrating both, researchers can minimize the limitations of each method. Combined devices require individual calibration and can be costly, but they offer better precision and are increasingly feasible for large-scale studies. Some users may experience skin irritation from electrodes, which is a minor limitation. Objective methods rely on self-reported information from participants, such as diaries, logs, and questionnaires. These tools are practical and low cost, making them suitable for large-scale studies. However, they're prone to recall errors, social desirability bias, and difficulties in capturing all dimensions of physical activity. Despite these limitations, subjective methods can assess the context and domains of activity, which objective methods often miss. Let's examine the main types of subjective assessment tool. Activity diaries require participants to record their activities at regular intervals, such as every 15 minutes. This method provides detailed patterns of daily activity and can estimate time spent at different intensities. Diaries are inexpensive and feasible for large populations, but they place a high burden on participants and may still be affected by recall errors. The use of digital or cell phone-based diaries can improve compliance and data quality, offering real-time recording and reducing retrospective completion. Physical activity questionnaires, or PAQs, are the most widely used self-report tools. They can be self- or interviewer-administered and are designed to assess frequency, intensity, and duration of activity. PAQs are cost-effective and easy to use in large populations, making them ideal for surveillance and risk stratification. However, they may not capture all domains or provide precise estimates of total activity. PAQs are best for ranking individuals by activity level rather than quantifying exact amounts. Global PAQs are short questionnaires, usually with 1 to 4 items, designed to quickly categorize individuals into activity levels. They ask about regular activity, comparisons to peers, or frequency of activities that cause sweating. These tools are useful for large-scale surveillance and broad classification, but don't provide detailed information on total activity or context. An example is the EPIC PAQ, which categorizes individuals as inactive, moderately inactive, moderately active, or active based on the past year's activity. The International Physical Activity Questionnaire, IPAQ, was developed to enable comparisons of activity levels across countries. It's available in both short and long forms, with the longer version collecting detailed information on domains like occupation, leisure, and transport. IPAQ has been validated internationally and is widely used in national and regional studies. Data from IPAQ have shown that over 30% of the world's adults do not meet recommended activity levels, highlighting the global challenge of physical inactivity. Etiological PAQs are comprehensive questionnaires designed to assess all dimensions and domains of physical activity, often for research into chronic diseases. They cover activity at home, work, and recreation, and use closed questions for easier analysis. These tools are validated against objective measures and are suitable for large epidemiological studies. More recent versions use shorter time frames to improve accuracy, but all PAQs must be validated for the specific population and context in which they're used. Subjective methods, while practical, have several limitations. They rely on participants' ability to recall and accurately report their activity, which introduces recall and social desirability biases. Questionnaires may not perform well across different age groups or cultures unless specifically validated. Leisure activities with clear terminology are easier to report than light or moderate activities, leading to imprecise estimates. As a result, subjective methods are better for ranking individuals than for quantifying exact activity levels. Selecting the most appropriate method for assessing physical activity depends on the study's purpose, population, and available resources. Researchers must weigh the pros and cons of each method, considering factors like participant burden, cost, accuracy, and the type of data needed. For example, pedometers are suitable for step counts, while accelerometers provide more detailed intensity data. Questionnaires must be validated for the target population and context. A thorough understanding of each method's strengths and limitations is essential for high-quality research. In using pedometers, researchers should consider the primary outcome. Are step counts sufficient, or is more detail needed? The type of activities the population engages in, the number of days measured, and the quality of the device all affect results. Higher quality pedometers are more accurate but also more expensive. It's important to ensure participants understand how to use the device and to monitor compliance for reliable data. For accelerometers, decisions must be made about the number of axes measured, the primary outcome, total activity, intensity, or energy expenditure, and the minimum wear time for valid data. Researchers should provide clear instructions on placement and use, and may ask participants to keep activity logs. The method of distributing and collecting devices, face-to-face or by mail, can also impact data quality. Calibration and data cleaning are essential for accurate results. Bind sensing methods, which integrate accelerometer and heart rate data, require careful calibration and participant training. Researchers must ensure participants are comfortable with device placement and provide clear written instructions. While combined devices offer improved accuracy, they are more expensive and may not be suitable for all populations. Researchers should weigh these factors when designing studies that require precise energy expenditure estimates. When using physical activity questionnaires, it's important to match the tool to the research question and population. Researchers should check if the PAQ has been validated for the target group and whether it captures the relevant time frame and activity domains. Instructions for completion and return should be clear, and data cleaning procedures must be established. Responsiveness, the ability to detect changes over time, is also a key consideration for intervention studies. Regardless of the assessment method, proper data cleaning and analysis are essential for reliable results. This includes checking for missing or implausible values, ensuring compliance with wear time protocols, and using appropriate statistical methods. For subjective tools, researchers must account for potential biases and misclassification. For objective tools, calibration and processing of raw data are critical. High-quality data management underpins all successful physical activity research. Assessment tools must be appropriate for the cultural and age group being studied. Questionnaires developed for adults may not work for children or the elderly, and tools validated in one cultural setting may not perform well elsewhere. Researchers should adapt and validate tools for each new context to ensure accurate and meaningful results. This is especially important in global studies or when comparing data across different populations. Self-report methods are susceptible to several biases. Social desirability bias leads participants to overreport activity levels, while recall bias affects the accuracy of reported details. Activities with clear terminology, like jogging, are easier to report than light or moderate activities, which may be misclassified. Researchers should be aware of these biases and interpret self-reported data with caution, using objective measures when possible to validate findings. Correlation coefficients, such as Pearson or Spearman, are often used to assess validity in physical activity studies. However, these may not always be the most appropriate statistical tools, especially for categorical measures. Intraclass correlation coefficients and weighted kappa are better suited for continuous and categorical data, respectively. Researchers should choose the right statistical methods to accurately interpret the validity and reliability of their assessment tools. Non-differential misclassification occurs when errors in measurement are unrelated to the outcome being studied. In observational research, this type of error tends to weaken, rather than exaggerate, observed relationships. While some degree of misclassification is inevitable with self-report methods, understanding its impact helps researchers interpret results more accurately and design better studies in the future. Recent advances in technology have greatly improved the assessment of physical activity. Modern accelerometers can collect high-frequency raw data for extended periods, and machine learning techniques are being used to identify activity types and estimate energy expenditure more accurately. Combined sensing devices and digital diaries offer new possibilities for large-scale, precise monitoring. However, these advances also bring challenges, such as the need for large datasets and complex data analysis. Population surveillance of physical activity is essential for tracking trends, identifying at-risk groups, and evaluating public health interventions. Standardized tools like the IPAQ enable comparisons across countries and regions. Surveillance data reveal that a significant portion of the global population does not meet activity guidelines, emphasizing the need for effective interventions and policies to promote physical activity worldwide. Accurate assessment methods are vital for evaluating the effectiveness of interventions aimed at increasing physical activity. Researchers must choose tools that are sensitive enough to detect changes over time and appropriate for the target population. Combining objective and subjective methods can provide a more complete picture of intervention outcomes, helping to refine strategies and improve public health. The field of physical activity assessment is rapidly evolving. Continued technological innovation, improved calibration standards, and the integration of big data and machine learning will enhance our ability to measure and understand physical activity. Collaboration between researchers, technologists, and public health professionals is key to developing standardized, accessible tools that can be used globally. The ultimate goal is to provide accurate, actionable data to improve health outcomes for all. Sum up, physical activity assessment is a complex but essential part of health research and public health practice. No single method can capture all aspects of activity, so researchers must carefully select and validate tools for each study. Objective methods provide accurate data on movement and intensity, while subjective methods offer context and domain information. Understanding the strengths and limitations of each approach ensures that findings are reliable and meaningful. When planning a study or public health program, consider the purpose, population, and resources before selecting an assessment method. Use objective tools for precise measurement when possible, and supplement with subjective tools for context. Always validate tools for your specific population and setting. By combining the best available methods, you can obtain a comprehensive understanding of physical activity and its impact on health. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the assessment of physical activity. As technology and research methods continue to advance, our understanding of movement and health will only deepen. Accurate measurement is the foundation for effective interventions in healthier communities. Stay curious, keep moving, and remember, the way we measure activity shapes the way we improve health for everyone.